I would like to invite Ms. Archana Naik, who is the Head of Tax at Bajaj Consumer Care. Please welcome Ms. Archana with a huge round of applause.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope I'm audible. Thank you, UBS, for giving me this opportunity to present here. The thing is that when it comes to GST, covering the topic in 20 minutes is a challenge itself. So I will try my best to cover the high key points here. So these are the basically section overview which I am going to cover in detail. To start with is first the digital growth journey. Now we have seen that GST has been transformational. Why we are saying so? Because if we compare it with the pre-GST era, the challenges which we face in terms of basic statutory requirement of obtaining the C forms, F forms, and most of the time this liability used to be seen as a contingent in our balance sheet. We used to face challenges in terms of the state VAT laws where even for the same product there were different tax rates. We were struggling with the definition of manufacturing for the excise. And in case of movement of trucks, what about octroi, what about entry tax which would delay and add up to the logistic cost. So in a way GST has been transformational in because the simplicity in the structure. If you see now we have we have a common constitutional law, that is the CGST, based on which there are various state laws. So if I see then again if I am a business which is operating in more than one state, I need not worry about the tax rate. It will be the same tax rate across all products. There is no statutory form requirements. In fact, the development which has happened, it from a business standpoint, it has eased my compliances. It has the truck movement which used to happen, that is a shorten the timeline because of the e-way bill. Because of the digital invoice, I have built up the confidentiality, the authenticity in that invoice which has an IRN, and now coming up is the IMS. So with this I feel the government somewhere is putting a trust on creating a digital ecosystem, and from a business standpoint it is always a welcome in terms of automation, and there is now without automation is the need of the hour. We cannot have something without automation. So in all it has been a very good span of 7 years. This is just rethinking GST compliances. So if you see, just I have list down, I am not going in detail because each of one you be aware of how the process will look like. But certain benefits I want to talk is that now your approach has to be a proactive and not a reactive. Earlier there used to be a month-end activity, even though we see the invoices, we could not take an action unless we download the 2B. Now on a real time basis you can act on that. So I think with the collaboration and the better communication between the supplier and the recipient, this is a great platform to do a reconciliation, resolve the issues, because now if you resolve the issues, what are the challenges you will be facing, and you will be able to match the percentage of ITC, and in way it will have a positive impact on your working capital. Another thing is that this IMS was brought with a basic intention to reduce those mismatches, challenges which the industry was struggling. In fact, we are struggling still now also after completing 7 years. So in a way it will be a two-way communication. Better what actions we are taken also will be visible on the common platform. So better will be prepared for the GST audits. Only thing is that right now we have to be very mindful is what action we are taking on credit notes, because we can take either we accept it or we reject it. So I think that when it comes to taking actions, we have to be very careful in terms when we particularly reject an invoice, because it will certainly affect our long term relations with the suppliers or with the vendors. So what are the key points we need to factor to have a successful IMS? As I said, collaboration and communication is the need of the hour. So if start from tracking the customer or the distributor action. Why I need to track the action? Suppose I generate an invoice and suppose there are some errors in that invoice. What option do I have if I cross those 24 hours to generate a GST credit note? Suppose I generate a credit note and I do not inform my supplier and I issue them the new one, what action you can expect from them? A rejection on your credit note, certainly, and then you see a huge impact on your increase in liability in the next subsequent month. So to avoid all this, I would suggest that before raising a GST credit note, you should proactively inform them, this is what I am doing, there is a mistake, and give the trail of all these 3 documents so that they can act appropriately. There should be a transparent process between supplier and customer, as I said for this credit note also. There has to be a collaboration not between only the supplier and the recipient, but also your internal stakeholder, whether it's your procurement team, your IT team, or your supply chain, your finance team, or the share service team to that extent, business team. The communication is required because it's the action which they have to take on the ground, the people who are doing it. There are certain tools which are available which gives you a reconciliation of IMS versus books, and you have to have them so that not not on a daily basis, but at least on a weekly basis or fortnightly basis, you should do the reconciliation, act on those actions, communicate with your vendors or communicate with your suppliers where are you facing challenges, have a platform, two-way communication. And there will be also an impact on accounting and financial. Why I am saying, because this data point which is there on IMS now will be visible to your auditor. So they may also question you even quarterly or half yearly or month end that these are why the invoices are not been booked, or have you made a provision against them. So from that we have to be very mindful. There are other recent updates. One is the amnesty scheme. Very well we know that it was a breather for us because we were struggling for the initial years of GST, the law being new. So a great relief in a sense in waiver of interest and penalty, and now it is a high time. Forms are also activated and we should take benefit of it. It is not applicable for section 74, only for 73. And but only challenge which we foresee is now all of you know that this is given a notice wise. So if I have been issued a notice which involves 3 financial years, I have a challenge for first 2 but not 1, the last one, then this is not for me. So that is why have a relook at your litigation tracker, identify what you need to go for it, and we need to take the benefit of it. Second thing is on the ISD. Now ultimately I think the government has resolved, because it is a long overdue dispute whether it is an ISD or it is a cross charge. This is a good thing for us. The tax team, I think most of you must have started identifying the common, like what is your learning development or whatever is your advertisement cost. In this, it is worth noting that you have to interact with your IT team, because there are a couple of changes required in your ERP in terms of vendor master, cost centers, business place, ISD invoice, how it will look like, how will your accounting entries be, you need to liaise with your finance team, make them aware, schedule a training with them, so that they are not confused, they roll out the proper ISD, when to use ISD and when to use the normal registration. Give the training to the PO creator, whether in terms of transition plan, because there must be some open POs which you need to close, and then you generate a new one communicating or quoting the ISD registration. There is no clarity as of now whether they will facilitate this RCM payment through ISD. Other thing is these are the budget proposals which is more aligned with the 55th GST Council made. The positive one which is that there are enabling provisions for invoice management, because there was a dilemma that was when it was introduced as an advisory, there were no backup, it was not backed up by a provision. Retrospective amendment is something which is not good, because it is again creating a chaos in our mind, uncertainty for the business, because to override a Supreme Court ruling in case of Safari, which all of us were positively looking at, has been nullified because of this amendment. Pre-deposit for penalty, especially for search and seizure, when we file it before Commissioner appeal, has come down to 10, but in other cases which was not applicable earlier has been brought to 10 cap. Another worthwhile I wanted to mention about these additional conditions. Now you remember section 15.3 which talks about giving the credit note in terms of schemes. We require documentations. We need a proof from the recipient that they have reversed the GST credit. Now this similar requirement will always be extended to 30.42 while we were facing this in challenges in most of the states, but now even if there is a sales return, they may ask you to prove it that they have reversed the credit. And it's now the virtual hearing has become a default mode which is applicable for the central authority, not for state. But if you have a litigation which involves a classification or which involves a technical matter or where you need a detailed elaboration, this is not a right platform. You need to have a personal hearing here. Challenges in GST, always the law has come, it's a warm welcome that had been a structural simplicity. but still there are certain challenges which we the industry is facing. So if I look at the first one is the multiple tax rates. If you see the recent controversy in case of popcorn where we have a 5%, 12%, 18%. Now suppose a person mix up this salted one with a caramel and he says that my proportion of the salted is more as compared to caramel, I want to tax at 12%, then what is the challenge for him? So what is happening right now because of this is creating an uncertainty and we are landing up in the form of litigation, pre-deposits. So I think that somewhere that stability has to be there. Frequent changes are not very welcome because when if you relook in the past quarter also from October, so many changes have happened, TDS on scrap, IST, IMS, you need to give a breathing space to the businesses because your ERP system also has to be configured for a seamless operations. So that is not good and especially this retrospective thing which I was talking about safari tree should not happen because that is not good from a cross border investment perspective. Another challenge which we face is now is the liquidity crisis. The reason being if you see the pre-GST era when there was a interstock movement within the same pan, we used to get form app, there was no cash flow. But now it is a hitch because it is considered as a taxable transaction. And now the thing is that the government does not allow us a refund of this accumulated. So I may have a factory where I end up paying cash, but I may have a credit accumulation lying at my depot level. So what to do in this case? I do not have any option, even the RCM I cannot use this balance for RCM, it has to be a cash payment. Even for if I take an input tax credit on the capital goods, even that is not allowed as a refund. So somewhere I think that the pre-GST like in a service tax, there was a common pool where there was a fungibility that if you have a credit in Maharashtra, you can settle against Karnataka. The same thing should be made applicable. The fungibility should be there in using the interstate credits which is lying, which will certainly give a very great relief to the business because now it is impacting our working capital. Same thing we have for cash adjustment, similar provisions should come for the accumulated credit also. Credit availment challenges, the government should be liberal on this block credits, especially on what cost we are incurring on employee. For example, if I am giving renting a particular apartment for my key personal director, whatever the GST we do not get a credit. Ultimately in the if you see from the income tax perspective, we allow it as a business expenditure, but not from the GST. There are harsh penalties for e-way bill. Even there are circulars, but that are narrowly interpreted. Strategies for optimization is that as I said you need to review your credit balance and you have to utilize or plan it in such a way within the four corners of law that you reduce this accumulation where it is happening, what is the reason, identify on a very regular basis, invest in the technology because without technology it is very difficult. You have to have those reconciliations, inward, outward tools which will give you a detailed analysis where is the gap so that you save the impact on your working capital. Unnecessary there is no GST outflow at the time of 9 or audit. Same thing if you are investing in any state, have a relook at the state policies. There is a central policy under Unnati also which for Northeast and think about the benefits which are related to your sales, their local sales or the GST outflow. Tag your eligible, ineligible ITC, that is very important. The way the developments are happening, it is very important to relook what are the tax positions you are taken while you are classifying your input tax credit. Training should be given to the employees that they know, especially when they are traveling the airlines, which registration to be quoted. ISD been coming, they have to be mindful now because of this. Second thing is that they should insist for the GST compliance, that is the e-invoice, and for the hotels which GST they should mention. So these are the few aspects which one should be mindful of. If you see the practical approach to be GST compliance in the internal control, the way auditor has it for the similar, I think the tax function also should have an internal review. They should identify what are the process gaps by visiting those premises, depots or it may be a factory, interacting with those individuals, any challenges, what challenge they have from the business standpoint, need to have a control on your documents. You need to review the documents so that you know what are the gaps, whether IRN is properly generated or whether we are talking in terms of vendor invoices, are we taking the IRN generated invoices. So some test check should happen on an interim basis, on a frequent basis, so that you can identify what are the gaps. Training should be given to your internal team. So whenever there is any recent developments, you should connect with them, inform them what are the developments, how will have an impact on the business, how will there should be a standard operating procedures place so that everyone is on the same page. We don't face the challenges. Especially IMS coming, I think that is the need of the hour so that each of us as a user knows what action and when action to be taken and what are the repercussions of that action. Tax technology, as I said, is the need. These are other regulatory changes. So you need to leverage on the tax data, you need to attend a tax forum, be connected with the peers in the industry to understand what positions they are taking. When there is a legal contract, you need to keep and inform that if there is any new transaction, you have to get it evaluated from a tax standpoint. And especially have the clauses for GST recovery, TDS and all. Because without these clauses, it would be difficult if you just hold it out. And especially IMS coming, if you accept any transaction on the portal, it should not be perceived that there is no dispute on the underlying transaction. So some clauses should be giving you a protection here. Vendor compliances, there are various tools which are available which have an auto process. So make use of them where they give you a credit rating of the vendors, hold their GST amount, auto hold, your accounts team doesn't have to worry on the portion. Tribunal formation. So right now we know that we are still facing this challenge, though the act had the provision, but there were some challenges regarding the role of technical members, where the Madras High Court also emphasized that we need judicial minds for interpreting the GST provisions. As you know that because of this, the Finance Act 2023 has been amended. There is a notification which has come up last year. They have said that one bench will be formed in Delhi and the other there will be a 31 benches. But as per the recent news which is going, we understand the recruitment process is still going on. Infrastructure they are looking at, and this will be an online process. So it will be paperless process which will get to know how successful over the period of time. Same thing, there are estate allocations going on. So this is just, they have appointed the retired justice as a president. There are principal benches already been formed. Appointment of members are progress. Only one circular which I want worth mentioning here which has come last year is that the pre-deposit. Now suppose you have a commissioner appeal order and you want to go in appeal. So what you have to do is that we have to be very mindful that you have to pay that amount on the portal and you have to file an application with the officer saying that I propose to file an appeal. So whenever the tribunal becomes operational, you can proceed. Otherwise, the recovery process will be initiated if this is not followed. Assessment. Now with GST, we were very hopeful that this administrative mechanism will be more stronger, more transparent. We'll have a much stronger dispute resolution mechanism. But that has nearly not happened. You can say that with 7 years of GST, we are still struggling with the tribunal formation, which is still operational. Almost as per the data available, 14,000 cases are still pending. There is lack of coordination between the central and state. You would be very well know how many notices we receive in and out, which comes from the central authority, which comes from the state authority, and a lot of investigations are happening. Similarly, now if you see, now what is the mechanism for me in absence of tribunal? I have to approach the High Court. But do you think all the writs which we file get admitted? No. The reason being that it may not involve a question of law. It may say that there is an alternate remedy available. So that's a challenge and there is always a cost and time involved in it. Second thing is that even we have an advance ruling, but you know how the pro-revenue mindset they have. So if I am a business operating in more than 2 states and I apply for advance ruling, for a classification matter on my product, I don't have a confident, say, both the HSN classification or the rate will be same. I may have a favorable ruling lower rate in Maharashtra and a higher rate somewhere in Karnataka. So I think that this is creating issues. We need a strong dispute resolution mechanism. Same issue is being treated differently by state and center. We have seen that. In fact, in one of the thing, I remember in our, now you know that they are asking for the state Trial balance, trial. Now we tried explaining, all of us, you have tried your hands best, but it does not work. In fact, they have gone ahead in one state and they have taken our turnover in which is we have reported in 9C for a state and they have applied 10% as a penalty, and we are struggling with that. So imagine what sort of mindset this have. And second thing, retrospective amendment, as I said, and I think that the government should come up with more clarification on this interpretation issues, like we have for pharma industry, we have it for FMCG, cure versus care. They should resolve those valuation complexities which are there for the corporate guarantee related party transactions. In fact, Supreme Court has also expressed concerns that people are misusing this arrest powers, but I think that we need a very strong dispute mechanism which is absent. And sometimes we have seen that those matters, those classification matters which, or those interpretation matters which were settled in the pre-GST era are not being considered by the department. At times they are issuing such orders which are non-speaking. We do not know what is the issue and we have to file an appeal against that. So what are the strategies to overcome this assessment challenges? First is that we need to have an updated litigation tracker. There are various tools which fetch the notices. If you are operating in more than one state, you get a status, there are auto replies also for those routine GST mismatch notices. You have to be prepared, you have to be proactive. As I said, reconciliation should be a monthly activity, not a year end or an audit process activity. You need to reevaluate your position in light of the circulars, notifications coming up. Leverage on the tax knowledge, reconciliation tools, technologies, as I mentioned, is the need of the hour. Have a very cordial relation with officer, yes, you need to have a cordial. If they are asking for any data points, you have to be prompt, because eventually this relation will only help you to build up the case. Then there is a proper accounting of the credit note and debit note. So various schemes are being issued. As I said, there are various circulars where you have to prove, if you issue a credit note, that the GST is reversed by the recipient. I think that you have to be very mindful how you account for it and how you report it and what documentation you call for it. I think that now 7 years, in coming year, we can expect some more transparent and a faster dispute resolution and some solutions from the government on this, how you can encash those accumulated GST credits, and we hope to see the tribunal coming up soon as an operational. Thank you.